Namaskar and a very good afternoon to you all. So, with them from our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, I take this opportunity to moderate today's episode of our motivational talk, Uttisthata. So, I am Khushbu Agarwal, working as Assistant Professor in Botany, Kalahandi University, and I take this opportunity to moderate today's 98th episode of Uttisthata, which is a motivational series. Sir, am I audible?
Yes, it's audible, audible.
It's audible, but some echo is there. Is inspect according.
Uh, our speaker, please mute it, sir.
Hello.
Okay, now.
All of you mute your calls. समझते थे कि म्यूट कर दियो so that echo होगा.
Okay, now ready.
So thank you, sir. So first of all, I welcome you all to our motivational series. That is the 98th episode of Uttisthata, and episode by episode we have now reached to 98th episode, and this is a, as all of we know, this is a weekly program, and the motivational series comes on every Friday at 4 p.m. So today's topic will be delivered by our esteemed guest Shri Rajendra K.Padhi, retired associate professor in English and an acclaimed poet as well. His topic will be delivered on the topic Poetry in Life. So, proceeding to today's program, first I request Miss Lipsa to have the welcome song. Miss Lipsa, please.
Thank you so much, ma'am. ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ମୋର ପ୍ରଣାମ। ଜାବୁଡ଼ି ଧରିବି କାଳେ ପାଦକୁ ତୋର ରେ କଳା ଠାକୁର ମୋ କଳା ଠାକୁର सिपाही रखिलो नहीं सिपाही रखिलो नहीं पाद तोहर रे कला ठाकुर मो कला ठाकुर कुम्भीर कबली गजत डाकिला पसा काठी तोर हाथ खसी पड़िला दासिया नड़िया नीलो हाथ बढ़ी पतित पावन बना दिलोड़े तथास्तु करिबो काले मागिले बर रे कला ठाकुर मो कला ठाकुर सिपाही रखिलो नहीं सिपाही रखिलो नहीं पद तोहर रे कला ठाकुर मो कला ठाकुर कला ठाकुर मो कला ठाकुर धन्यवाद समस्तଙ୍କୁ आउथरे प्रणाम।
Thank you so much, Lipsa, for this melodious, soft beginning of today's program. Thank you again on behalf of Kalahandi University. Now, I would request our esteemed Registrar of Kalahandi University, Shri Pitambar Bhoi sir, to give the warm welcome address. Sir, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Namaskar, Honorable Vice Chancellor Kalahandi, Professor Sanjay Kumar Satwati sir, respected Speaker of the Day, Professor Rajendra Kumar Padhi sir, respected Chairman PG Council, Major Dr. Jaydev Sahu sir, respected Madam Khushbu, respected all HODs and faculty members, respected participants, my dear students and Lipsa, on behalf of all members of Kalahandi University family, I extend my sincere welcome you to this 98th episode of Motivational Talk series Uttishtata of our Kalahandi University. Today we have with us Professor Rajendra Kumar Padhi as our Chief Speaker of the Day. I welcome you, sir. Professor Rajendra Kumar Padhi will motivate to our participant on the topic poetry in life. In this regard, I would like to say poetry is voice of soul, life song of human being, and also it is a feeling of dignity of human being. So I once again welcome you all. Thank you. Now it is over to Khushbu ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for letting us know the significance of poetry and the warm welcome address. Thank you, sir, again. Now it's time to know about our today's esteemed guest, Professor Rajendra Kumar Padhi, sir. So now I request Miss Arya Naik, our UG student from Department of English, to introduce our esteemed guest of today's occasion. Miss Arya, please.
Thank you so much, ma'am. A warm good afternoon to one and all present here. I, Arya Naik, a student of the PG Department of English, Kalahandi University, welcome you all to the 98th Motivational Talk series, also known as Uttishtata. We have successfully reached to the 98th talk of the series, and the speaker of today's session is Shri Rajendra Kumar Padhi, a retired associate professor in English and an acclaimed poet. He has been contributing for the enrichment of Indian writing in English. He is mentioned in Writing in English Part 2 in India for his poetic contributions. He is the recipient of International Poetry Award, Universal Inspirational Poet in Accra, Africa, where he was felicitated in the presence of Honorable President and his Council of Ministers. In the World Friendship Poetry Festival, along with other 11 poets of the world gathered there. He was sent by the UGC under HRD Ministry. His poems and articles have been featured in more than 80 books, journals, and anthologies from the different countries of the world. He has written 5 books, of which 4 are poetry books and 1 English novel. The books written by him are Songs of Void, published by Alpha Publication, New Delhi in 2008, The Living Touch in 2009, and O Earth in 2011. These two were also published in English by Alpha Publication, New Delhi. Sunyatara Priyotama, which is written in Odia, was published in 2008. The first English novel, The Dark Hours, published by Paragon International, New Delhi in 2013. Reflections, which is a poetry collection published by Authors Press of India in 2018. He has translated the biography of Saint Arakkhita Das and Mahimandal Gita from Odia into English and is published. He is the editor of 7 books, namely International Short Story Collection, The Story Wagon, International Poetry Anthologies Anthesis, Holy Hymns, Aroma of Wilting Petals, Whispering Hearts, and others works in progress. He was written preface, reviews, introduction, and blurbs in many books around the world. He was also the judge of Rabindranath Tagore International Poetry Award along with Helen Cordona and Tate Morgan from USA. He was also a jury of the Bharat Award for International Short Story. His articles on literature, education, and media have been published in the internet and journals and are widely appreciated. His poems and articles have been published in more than 80 books and journals widely from USA, Germany, India, Africa, Philippines, Nigeria, and many other countries in anthologies. His poems, articles, and interviews are published in quarterly journals from USA, Philippines, Africa, and India. He has given keynote address in Hyderabad Poetic Confluence in 2019. He was also the guest speaker in Agaman Milan Utsav in Kolkata at Bharatiya Bhasha Parishad in 2018. He was also the honorable speaker in the International Conference in Multidisciplinary Research in Kolkata in 2019. Next to this, he was also a speaker in India International Center, New Delhi on the topic Metalanguage Disquisition. He has remained as a resource person in national conferences in many universities, colleges, and government programs. And his topic for today's talk will be Poetry in Life. It is an honor to be graced by your presence, sir. Now, may I request Sri Rajendra Kumar Padhi, sir, to address his talk. The platform is all yours, sir.
Thank you so much, dear Arya. Thank you for such an enriched, brief, and nice introduction of our today's guest. Kalahandi University is indeed today feel glad to have such a personality with us. So, without much delay, I welcome our today's guest and speaker, Shri Rajendra Kumar Padhi, sir, to deliver his talk on the topic Poetry in Life. Sir, please.
Thank you, everyone. Am I audible?
You are audible clearly.
Esteemed Vice Chancellor of Kalahandi University, Revered Dr. Sanjay Kumar Satpathy sir, Honorable Registrar sir, all the faculty members of the Department of English, and my most loving Dr. Professor Jaydev Sahu, my loving students, and all the participants, those who are present today on this in this webinar on a topic that is given to me, poetry in human life. Today, when we are living in a digital world and we are having Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google Plus, and so many, and today we find thousands of people, rather more than thousands of people every day, they write poems. And we find that people in the modern life, when they feel sorrows or some kind of depression, and particularly during the time of Corona, during this COVID pandemic, we find that people, they publish so many, they wrote so many poems, and so many anthologies, so many books came out during COVID-19, and we find that people, whenever they are very happy, whenever they are overjoyed, whenever they are in sorrows, in sufferings, they feel to express their emotions. And I don't think that in the modern world, anybody is going to share your feelings, share your emotion, because people are highly leading a highly materialistic life, and people are so much busy in this material world. For that reason, many people in this world, they live in isolation, they live in solitude, and we find people are also experiencing anxiety, people are experiencing sorrows, people are facing new challenges in life. For that reason, people are not ready to accept share your feelings and emotion. And when you write a poem, you are released because you express your emotion, you express your feelings, and at least somebody in this social media will read your poem, will give one or two comment, and there you feel very relaxed. That is why poetry is always poetry is told as Sahridaya Hridaya Sambad. It is the transfer of emotion of one heart to the other hearts of the world. And I think that God is also a great poet. And you know that uh, Zoroaster, he told that poets are liars because they live in a fictional world. They don't live in a real world. They live in a very imaginary world. So if you read one book written by Friedrich Nietzsche, the name of the book is Thus Spoke Zarathustra. There you find Zarathustra says that poets are liars because they live in a fictional world. Plato also did not allow the poets to enter into his academy, to be in his republic, because he was disgusted with Homer, because he did not portray the Greek gods in a very decent manner. In spite of that, we feel that uh, this himself, Zoroaster himself was a great poet. When you read his works, when you read his books, when you read this book, the Thus Spoke Zarathustra, you find that the language of Zoroaster is so wonderful. He was a great poet. So poetry is basically Sahridaya Hridaya Sambad. In the ancient days, poetry was the part of the life of the people. You know that poetry was the part of the festivals, our customs, our tradition, and Vedas were also written in a poetic form. And Veda was rather, uh, it was meant for singing. Veda is filled with prayers and hymns. So we find that uh, perhaps God is himself is a great poet, and it is told that Apara Kabya Samsare Kavireva Prajapati Jatheva Rochate Vishwam Tatheva Parivartate. In this world, poets are like creators Brahma. The way they think, the way they create their own world. And for that reason, as this world is an imaginary world of God, because in this world we have death, we have birth, we have death, and time is illusory, life is illusory, and definitely this is not actually a real world. It is almost like a world of a poet. So God Himself is a great poet, and we find that when man was living in the forest, at the time perhaps the young lads and lasses hide in each other's hand. They, young boys and girls, they must have felt to express their love, to express their emotion in the form of a song, in the form of a poem. Poem itself is in Greek language, poema. In Greek language, poem means making something. So poem is gradually, it was there as a song, but poems are gradually developed in different art and techniques. But then poetry has remained as the companion of human companion of the human beings since the very inception of this, since the very beginning of the human civilization. We find that man has been singing so many songs, and all these songs have been gradually recorded as poetry or poems. So we have heard so many songs in our childhood days. You know that when our grandmother was singing a lullaby to lull us to sleep, at the time poetry was traveling from one mouth to the other mouths. So in our childhood, when we were children, we were we have heard so many poems. We have heard so many lullabies from our grandmother. when we started growing, we went to the school. We have sat on the prayers. We have again recited so many poems, which is in the form of the prayer. Then when we also went to the school at the time, we find that children, they have learned human language through the nursery rhymes. When we became young, we find at the time of the marriage, we find that people, they sing marriage songs, which are called madrigals. When somebody dies, at the time also we find songs. So songs are a part of our life. Without songs, we cannot exist in this world. And it is told that song is rather created from the human soul. And when your soul is purified, when your soul becomes very pure, at that time you are gifted with these blessings of writing a poem. So it comes from the soul. As Plato himself told that songs and music affects to the soul. That is why we find that uh, poetry is or poems are very much associated with our uh, life, and in every stage of life we find poetry to be playing a very great role. And poetry has not only played a great role during the different stages of our life, but also we find that poems have been used in the world as anthems, national anthem, and poems have been used in this world uh, for entertainment as songs. So poetry has been a part of our life, and I think that if all the people of the world will turn into great poets, definitely all will turn into good human beings, because a poem deals with feelings and emotion. And when feelings and emotion will be very profound in a man, at that time he will be definitely sharing the sorrows and sufferings of the world. Poems have not only a means of expressing your emotions and feelings, but also poems have been a means of protesting. You know that during the time of the British rule in India, much of the literature and much of the poetry have been written as a anti-colonial text. And there you find that poetry has been used for protesting against the disorder and disharmony in the world. And there we find that when we read the poetry of the during the World War First and the World War Second, when we read the poetry of the post-World War, there we find that the poets, they have raised their voice against the degeneration of the mankind. They have raised their voice against the war. And I remember William Butler Yeats, the second coming, where he says, turning and turning in the widening jar, the falcon cannot hear the falconer, things fall apart, the center cannot hold, mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. There the poet says that this whole world is gradually going in a process of disintegration. And after the outbreak of the First World War and the Second World War, we find that this world was divided. The harmony of the world was lost, as we find W. Yeats and T.S. Eliot also wrote in his Wasteland. April is the cruelest month, breeding lilacs out of the dead land. So this world was imagined by the poet as a dead land. Because gradually we are becoming highly materialistic, highly self centered, and we are not ready to be humanitarian in our approach. We are going from the root of our culture, we are going from the root of human culture. So, thereby, we find that poetry has been also used as a protest against all the vices, all the crimes. Poetry has been used as a means of bringing reformation in the society. Robert Frost, one of the American poets, has told that poets are the great teachers of the society. Also, those who have read William Wordsworth, they find that William Wordsworth has built up a very moral landscape in his poetry. And he has tried to explore a very spiritual relationship with man and nature. So when we read poetry, maybe ancient poetry or maybe modern poetry, we find that poetry has been a part of human life in the context of not only expressing our individual or personal emotion, but also it is a means of entertaining people. Also, it is a means of reforming the world. W.H. Auden once said that in poetry nothing happens. He said that when you write poetry, uh, it doesn't actually change the human beings in the world. But then he was himself was a great poet. Poetry has been the very basis of human uh, existence, and today poetry is also used for clinical purposes. Poetry is used for this healing therapy. Those who are mentally sick, their treatment is done through poetry. So poetry has a very great mission. It has a very great destiny in the world. And I feel that if people will start writing poetry to express their emotion and feelings, through words, then definitely there will be a great change in them, because poetry brings a lot of transformation in the human life, because we observe the human beings, we participate in the human activities, we look at the human condition and the human situation, and when we develop a profound understanding of life, at that time we write poetry. And that is why poetry is very essential in human life for each and every human being in this world, to develop the imaginative power. And once your imaginative power is developed, then you can comprehend the harmony of the world. And that is why poetry must be rather, today in the world we find there are so many poetry slams, poetry festivals, and there are uh, so many workshops going on to teach our students how to write a poem. Today we find that poetry has been also a means of rather developing the economic and economy in a country. As you know that Rupi Kaur, one of the Indian-born Canadian artist and poet, her two books were published. One book is The Sun and His Flowers, and the other book is Honey and the Milk. And these two books have been sold 2.5 million in the world. And these two books are based on feminism. But then many works of literature, and particularly poetry, has been the very basis of giving you today some money to your purse. Today also you can uh, be a freelance poet, and today you can write also reviews, and you can write the uh, preface or the introduction of any book, and people will pay you money also. So today you can also earn money by writing poetry. So poetry has been also a very great basis of earning money. And you know that one of the very senior editor of the Writers Digest writing community, he has written one book called Poets Market, another book called Writers Market, another book called Writers Digest magazine, where you find that these books, they say that how actually poetry books even, they, if they are written in a good way, in a good manner, then definitely these poetry books can give you also money. So today we are living in a world where actually poetry has not only entertained us, poetry has not only given us a kind of knowledge of the human life, poetry has not only given us uh, a kind of sharing of our feelings and emotion, but poetry has been, since the very past, poetry has been the very means of uniting the world. So if you want to achieve the world harmony, if you want to achieve the unity of the world, then definitely we must all start writing poetry, because you need some only words, some words, and those words will rather help you to write poem. And when we read poem, there are so many poems, like when you listen a ghazal. Ghazal is a kind of poetry also. So when you read listen a ghazal, when you listen any other form of poetry, at the time you are highly delighted. So in your sadness, in your happiness, in every moment of your life, poetry has become the part of life. And also poetry is not confined to the this mortal world. Poetry is beyond this mortal world. And you know, dear friends, that if you want to write poetry, or if you want to be a poet, definitely you have to be in solitude, and you have to be rather a spectator of the human condition, and then only you can observe the human condition and experience the human condition. Then you can write a poem, write about poetry. So we find that poets are also called the unacknowledged legislators of the world. They are called as prophets, they are called as visionaries, and they give a vision of the world. They also give prophecies of the future world. And we find that they try to interpret human life. They not only experience human life, they interpret human life, and they provide a very good understanding of the human life. They describe what is birth, what is death, what is marriage, what is sorrow, what is joy, what is smile, what is tears. So, what are the most important human emotions and human conditions that is better expressed in poetry? And there we find, I remember one of the line of Kavirdas, Lakdi bhai koila, koila bhai raak, Lakdi bhai koila, koila bhai raak, मैं बिरहन ऐसे जली ना कोयला भई ना राख. So here the poet is trying to express a very complicated emotion of separation. Lakdi bhai koila, when this wood is burned, it becomes coal, and the coal is burned, it becomes ashes. But when your heart is burned, neither it becomes coal nor it becomes ashes. This is one of the wonderful lines written by Kabir Das, where actually the poet is trying to explain this complicated emotion of the burning of the heart, or when there is a separation between the lover and the beloved. What is their experience of separation? It is only poetry that can express the most complicated emotions of your life. And since the very days of the Vedas, you know that Vedas were Sritis, and Vedas were also the songs, or they are also the beautiful poems. In this context, I remember a few lines of Sanjana Shuktam. Samano mantra samiti samani samana manah सह चित मेषाम समान मंत्र मंत्रेय च समाने न वो हवि सा जुहोमी. So if this all the people of the world will have one language to speak, if the all the people of the world will have one mind, a very similar mind, similar thinking will be there in the people, when all the people of the world will worship a very rather a similar deity, and if this whole of the world will have same thinking, same language, and same mind, then perhaps this world will turn into a paradise or a heaven. And that is why from the very Vedas till the modern days, poetry has become very the part of life, and it has also become today the art of life, because when we cannot express our emotion and feelings to anybody in the world, it is better to sit down and write a poem. As Wordsworth has once told, the world is too much with us, later soon getting or spending, we lay waste our powers. We are actually wasting our powers, because death is the equalizer. Whether you are a great man, you are a rich man, you are a knowledgeous man, when death will come, all will have to go to the graveyard. As one of the great poets has told, Thomas Gray, the paths of glory leads but to the grave. So that is why, because all the people are going to die in this world, So all our achievements are meaningless. But what is most important in the world is how we express how we share our emotion, as what poetry is Sakridaya Hridaya Sambhada. It is the transfer of the emotion of one heart to the million's heart. When you write a poem, and if it is liked by the readers, then definitely your poem will be rather, it will be, your emotion will be shared by all the people of the world. In this context, I remember a few lines of Harivansh Rai Bachchan's Madhusala, where actually the whole world is a Madhusala. And every one of us, somebody is addicted to, obsessed with knowledge, somebody is obsessed with wealth, somebody is obsessed with something. So everybody is trying to get some kind of joy or pleasure or nectar from this world. So I remember when he begins the Madhushala, मदिरा ले जाने को निकला घर से मदिरा वाला, मदिरा जाने ले जाने को निकला घर से मदिरा वाला, किस पथ पर मैं जाऊं असमंजस में है भोला भाला, अलग अलग पथ बतलाते पर सब, अलग अलग पथ बतलाते सब पर मैं ये पथ बतलाता हूँ, एक चला चल राही तू मिल जाएगा मधुशाला. So when you travel alone also you enjoy the world. The poem speaks that this man who is going to take alcohol in the morning is very much confused in which way to go so that people cannot see him going to fetch the wine. But here this man, this man who is going to bring wine is actually you and me and everyone in this world. And because we all are actually trying to get nectar from this Madhushala, this whole world is the Madhushala, and everyone is drunk with the very joys and the happiness of this world. So this is a highly philosophical poem, but it is written so beautifully that today it is a very famous poem by Harivansh Rai Bachchan. It is very famous throughout the world. So thereby we find that poetry has been the very basis of delighting our mind, entertaining our mind, and it has been the very means of sharing our emotions and feelings. And when heart is missing in a poem, then the poem itself is missing. कि जब दिल नहीं है तभी कविता नहीं है. So heart is very important. Heart is the seat of emotion and feelings. Emotion and feelings are the very essence of poetry. And that is why poetry is called sometimes the breath and finer spirit of human life. It's the breath of human life. And when we feel sorrow, we sing a song. When we feel joy, we sing a song. And when we write this song, it becomes a poem. And that is why we find today that millions and millions of people are writing today poetry. And very recently in India, in Economic Times, there was an interview of the French writer who has very recently translated the Indian literature into French language. And he has earned a lot of money. And he had given an interview that if Indian literature will be translated into the different languages of this world, then definitely it will bring a lot of money to the country. So we must know that what we actually feel about life, what we think about life, and when we take the help of some words to express our emotion and feelings, that becomes a poem. And that gives you also, as Joseph Addison, in one of his essays, he says that people, they are educated, they are highly creative, but they do not know how to get name and fame. If they spend some hours in writing, some hours in reading, some hours in expressing their thoughts and emotion by means of some words, that will bring them. Education brings them, creativity brings them, imagination brings them, emotional feelings. And as you know that uh, the children literature, which is highly imaginative literature, children poetry, is very popular in the world. So when we write poem, a poetry has an educative value in life. A poetry has the power of entertaining the people of the world. So everyone is a poet, as Wordsworth tells that every man is a poet. In this world, every man is a poet, but he has to explore some extraordinary sensibilities in him. As you find that It is rather a sensation for the perception of the beauty of the world. Definitely, that will make every one of us as a poet. Once we have these blessings of Satchit Ananda, we have the consciousness, but we must have the perception of the truth and the beauty that will make us a very good poet. And also our poetry will be rather, it will show paths to the millions of the people who are actually suffering in this world. We can show light to them. We can show light to them in their darkness of life. So I think that poetry is very deeply associated with human life. And if we read poems of the past as well as the present, we find that poetry has been the very basis of providing great joy to the people of the world. And because in Bharata Natya Sastram, in Rasa theory, we find how actually the poets, they used different kind of rasas. Rasas are the emotions, like Sringara Rasa, Viraha Rasa. So when these emotions are used in poetry, it becomes very powerful and becomes very appealing, and it reaches to the millions of the people of the world. So we we find that poetry is very greatly associated with human life, and poetry has been the very part of our existence since the very beginning of the human civilization, when the Rome city, when actually human civilization, human society was found on the banks of river Euphrates and Tigris, and when this Rome city was built, at that time we find how actually the young boys and the girls standing at the balconies, they sang songs, and that is the very beginning of the great literary works in the Roman civilization. So every man is a poet, and there is a poet in every man's heart, but he has to discover it. And once you discover that, then you will become a great poet, and poetry will rather become the very basis of uniting this world, as we find in our Upanishad, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. So this should be the very message of writing poetry. Poetry must be written to bring harmony between man, nature, and God. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a lucid, elaborative description on today's topic, that is poetry in life. I think you have enlightened us on every aspect of the topic, that is poetry in life. So I think, moreover, I think that your today's deliberation is very much inspirational for our students, for whom actually the program is meant for. So you gave us idea about all the aspects, like indeed poetry comes from soul, I agree, and it is created from the souls, and definitely it express the our emotions in the best way. Even as you said, even the complicated emotions that can be expressed through the poetry. And writing a poetry or reading a poetry, it heals our soul, and I think that's the reason, as you said, it is now used in healing therapy, and now it holds utmost clinical significance. So many people are using this for bringing transformation, for relieving stress, for providing many therapies to the people who are having some kind of mental issues or stress or like that. And very well you have said that many writings and many poetries have brought revolution even to the society, and the poets are indeed greatest teacher in our life. So one more thing, you said that in today's time, not only we can just read poetry for relaxedness or for bringing entertainment to our life, but our students or anyone can now earn money if they have the potential to bring some good thoughts in through their writings by freelancing and so many other means. Now the like Kindle book and so much things are now there. So thank you so much, sir, for your nice words. And I would say that definitely, as you said, we must should start writing poetry, because as you said, it is the part of life, it is the art of life. We really, sir, very much liked as the way you express the words of Harivansh Rai Bachchan, that is, the world is Madhushala and all are been very much indulged and involved in their part, their art. So thank you again so much, sir. We
Thank you.
we are really lucky to have you today. So now it's time, uh, for whom uh, we all are united today. The beginner, the Srishtikarta of this Uttishtata program, our very own Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sanjay Kumar Satpathy, sir. So we are eagerly waiting now to hear from you, sir. So I request you, sir, to have few words on today's topic, poetry in life. Sir, please.
It was a nice, thrilling talk of Rajendra. I wanted, like I express sometimes, each one of us is like a pressure cooker. More now at the present juncture of the world, where the personal, social, global, and universal pressures becoming heavy day by day. We don't know what will happen tomorrow morning. Even a question mark whether we will exist or not. So each pressure cooker has a safety valve. So also we need a safety valve. Poetry can be a good safety valve. Each one of us are combined with the Navarasas, but poetry mostly as a view can be given of the Adi Kavi, Valmiki, has oozed out from Karuna Rasa. The happening was this: Devamuni Narada narrated about Marjada Purushottam Rama and left. Valmiki was thrilled, then went to the river Tamasha for his midday baths, where he spotted two cranes calling to each other and mating. Valmiki was filled with joy seeing the happiness of the birds. Mark it. What he sees. He could observe the happiness of the birds, not any obscenity, nothing. He was happy. But suddenly what happened? An arrow pierced the body of the male bird, killing him immediately. Filled with sorrow, his mate died of shock. Upon seeing this, the enraged Rishi Valmiki couldn't control himself and cursed the hunter. What he cursed, which came from his heart, became the first poetry of the world. Ma nishad pratishtha Tamagama Shashwati Sama. You will find no rest for the long years of eternity. For you killed a pair of birds in love and unsuspecting. So that was the start. Ramayana was written, Mahabharata was written, and many epics were written in the different parts of the world. And if I think of the area in which I am, which was known as Kandistan beforehand, now Kalahandi, in every aspect of the life, there is poetry. When a child is born, when the child becomes young, when they sow seeds, when the flowers come, the fruits come, when they harvest, and even when the person dies, there is poetry. So, time is viewed as unredeemable and problematic, whereas eternity is beautiful and true. Living under time's influence is a problem. So, the moment of time in which brief moments of eternity are caught, worldly experience leading to dissatisfaction, purging the world, divesting the soul of the love of created things, a lyric prayer or affirmation of the need of intercession, the problem of attaining artistic wholeness, which becomes analog for and merges into the problem of achieving spiritual health. So I end up with the experience of APJ Abdul Kalam. Whenever he was not finding any way of solution, even when he was working with missile, he was reading poetry. And a solution comes. But one of his immortal poems written by him as a young citizen of India, armed with technology, knowledge, and love for my nation, I realize small aim is a crime. These are the opening lines of the Song of Youth by APJ Abdul Kalam. Many poems are there. Many poems have worked as a lighthouse and showed the way, as a lighthouse shows the path to ships. So again, I express my thanks, pleasure to Rajendra, and I wish the nice words delivered by him will definitely be carried by you, analyzed by you, and will enrich you. Thank you. Thank you, dear.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Always happy to motivate. Always happy word. I request all to mute themselves. Please kindly mute yourself. Thank you. So, thank you, sir, for guiding us. And we all know that you are also a great poet, and your poetry has a great impact to the society and always have bring a lot of happiness, bring a source of motivation among us. So thank you, sir. So today I think the Uttishtata episode is full of poets. Dr. Jaidev sir is also there. He is also a great poet. With this, now I request Shri Amarendra Mahanti, Faculty of English at Kalahandi University, to propose the formal vote of thanks on today's occasion. Over to you, Amarendra.
ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ମୋର ନମସ୍କାର। ମୁଁ ଅମରେନ୍ଦ୍ର ମହାନ୍ତି କଳାହାଣ୍ଡି ବିଶ୍ୱବିଦ୍ୟାଳୟର ଇଂରାଜୀ ବିଭାଗରେ ଅତିଥି ଅଧ୍ୟାପକ ଭାବରେ କାର୍ଯ୍ୟରତ। ଆଜିର ଏହି 98ତମ ପ୍ରେରଣାଦାୟୀ ବକ୍ତୃତାମାଳା ଉତ୍ତିଷ୍ଠିତର ସ୍ମରଣଦାୟୀ ଏହି ସ୍ମରଣୀୟ ଅବସରରେ ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ପର୍ବର ଏକ ଗୁରୁଦାୟିତ୍ୱ ନିର୍ବାହନ କରୁଛି, ଯାହା ପାଇଁ ନିଜକୁ ମୁଁ ଏକ ଧନ୍ୟ ମନେ କରେ। ଏହି ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ପର୍ବର ପ୍ରଥମ ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ମୁଁ ଦେବାକୁ ଚାହିଁବି ଆମ ବିଶ୍ୱବିଦ୍ୟାଳୟର କୁଳପତି କର୍ଣ୍ଣେଲ ପ୍ରଫେସର ଶ୍ରୀ ସଞ୍ଜୟ କୁମାର ଶତପଥୀ ମହୋଦୟଙ୍କୁ, ଯାହାଙ୍କ ନିରନ୍ତର ପ୍ରୟାସ ଆଜି ଆମକୁ ଆଣି ରଖିଛି ଏହି 98ତମ ପ୍ରେରଣାଦାୟୀ ବକ୍ତୃତାମାଳାରେ, ଯାହାଙ୍କ ନିରନ୍ତର ସହଯୋଗ ଆମକୁ ସବୁବେଳେ ଉତ୍ସାହିତ କରେ। ମୁଁ ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ଅର୍ପଣ କରିବାକୁ ଚାହିଁବି ଆମ ଗହଣରେ ଥିବା ଏକ ମହାନ କବି ଲେଖକ ଶ୍ରୀ ରାଜେନ୍ଦ୍ର କୁମାର ପାଢ଼ୀ ମହୋଦୟଙ୍କୁ, ଯିଏ ଆଜିର ଏହି ବିଷୟ ପୋଏଟ୍ରି ଇନ୍ ଲାଇଫ୍, ଜୀବନର କବିତାର ମହତ୍ତ୍ୱ, ଯାହା ବିଷୟରେ ଏକ ସୁନ୍ଦର ଚର୍ଚ୍ଚା ଆରମ୍ଭ କଲେ। ଆମେ ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ସାର୍ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ ଆମ ଗହଣରେ ପାଇ ଆମେ ନିଜକୁ ଧନ୍ୟ ମନେ କରୁ। ଆମର ସମସ୍ତ ସାହିତ୍ୟ ପ୍ରେମୀ ଆଜି ବହୁତ ଖୁସି ହେଇଥିବେ। ଆଉ ଆମେ ସମସ୍ତେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ସାହିତ୍ୟ ପଢୁ ଆଉ ଅନୁଭବ କରୁ ଯେ ମଣିଷ ଜୀବନର ଏହି କବିତାଟି ଏକ ଅବିଚ୍ଛେଦ୍ୟ ଅଙ୍ଗ ହିସାବରେ କାମ କରେ, ଯାହାକୁ ଆମେ ବାଲ୍ୟକାଳରୁ ଜନ୍ମରୁ ନେଇ ମୃତ୍ୟୁ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଆମ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ସେ ରହିଥାଏ। ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ସାର୍। ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ଦେବି ଆମ ବିଶ୍ୱବିଦ୍ୟାଳୟର ରେଜିଷ୍ଟ୍ରାର ଶ୍ରୀ ପୀତାମ୍ବର ଭୋଇ ମହୋଦୟଙ୍କୁ, ଯାହାଙ୍କ ନିରନ୍ତର ସେ ଆମ ସହିତ ରହି ଏହି ବକ୍ତୃତାମାଳାକୁ ସଫଳ କରିଛନ୍ତି। ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ସାର୍। ଆପରେ ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ଦେବି ଚେୟାରମ୍ୟାନ ପିଜି କାଉନସିଲ ଡକ୍ଟର ମେଜର ଜୟଦେବ ସାହୁ ସାର୍ଙ୍କୁ, ଯିଏ ନିଜେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଏକ କବି ଆଉ ସବୁବେଳେ ଉତ୍ସାହିତ କରନ୍ତି, ସବୁବେଳେ ତାଙ୍କ କବିତା ମାଧ୍ୟମରେ ଆମକୁ ଜୀବନର ପାଠ ପଢ଼ାନ୍ତି। ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ସାର୍ ଆମ ସହିତ ଆମକୁ ଉତ୍ସାହିତ କରିବା ପାଇଁ। ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ଦେବି ପରିଚାଳନା କରୁଥିବା ଖୁସବୁ ମ୍ୟାଡାମଙ୍କୁ, ଯିଏ ଏହି ସଭାଟିକୁ ବହୁତ ସୁନ୍ଦର ହିସାବରେ ପରିଚାଳନା କଲେ। ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ଦେବି ଲିପ୍ସା ମହାରଣା ଭଉଣୀଙ୍କୁ, ଯାହାଙ୍କ ସୁନ୍ଦର ସଙ୍ଗୀତ ଦ୍ୱାରା ଆମର ଏହି ସଭାଟି ଆରମ୍ଭ ହେଲା, ଆଉ ଯିଏ ଆମ ସହିତ ସବୁବେଳେ ଥାଇ ତାଙ୍କର ଏହି ସଙ୍ଗୀତ ଦ୍ୱାରା ଆମକୁ ମନୋରଞ୍ଜନ କରିଥାନ୍ତି। ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ଦେବି ଅତିଥି ପରିଚୟ ଦେଇଥିବା ଆର୍ଯ୍ୟ ନାୟକ ଭଉଣୀଙ୍କୁ, ଯିଏ ଅତିଥିଙ୍କ ଏକ ସୁନ୍ଦର ପରିଚୟ ଆମ ସାମ୍ନାରେ ରଖିଲେ। ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ଆର୍ଯ୍ୟ। ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ଦେବି ସମସ୍ତ ଛାତ୍ରଛାତ୍ରୀ, ସମସ୍ତ ବିଭାଗର ମୁଖ୍ୟ, ସମସ୍ତ ସହକର୍ମୀ ବନ୍ଧୁ, ଯେଉଁମାନେ ସବୁବେଳେ ଆମ ସହିତ ରହି ଏହି ବକ୍ତୃତାମାଳାକୁ ସଫଳ କରି ଆସୁଛନ୍ତି। ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ଦେବି ଟେକ୍ନିକାଲ ଟିମ୍ରେ ଥିବା ସନ୍ତୋଷ ଭାଇ, ଚନ୍ଦନ ଭାଇ ଓ ଅଭିଷେକ ଭାଇଙ୍କୁ, ଯେ ସବୁବେଳେ ଆମ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ଏହି କାର୍ଯ୍ୟକ୍ରମକୁ ସଫଳ କରିବାରେ ସବୁବେଳେ ନିଜର ସମୟ ପ୍ରଦାନ କରନ୍ତି। ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ଦେବି ସମସ୍ତ ବୁଦ୍ଧିଜୀବୀ, ସମସ୍ତ କାର୍ଯ୍ୟକର୍ମୀ, ଯେଉଁମାନେ ଆମକୁ ଏହି ନିଜର ପ୍ରୟାସ ଦ୍ୱାରା ଏହି 98ତମ ପ୍ରେରଣାଦାୟୀ ବକ୍ତୃତାମାଳାରେ ଆଣି ରଖିଛନ୍ତି। ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ। ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ସାର୍।
Many thanks to you, Amarendra, also for such nice vote of thanks. Now let's move for the Santi Patha. Om Sharve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kashchid Dukhabhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So thank you all. Now, with the permission from the chair, I declare the meeting to closed, and we will meet in another episode of Uttishtata. So thank you all. Have a nice time.
खुशबू
मैडम लेफ्ट
हाँ
कलेनी
खुशबू को भी बहुत धन्यवाद ଆଉ ଆମେ ନେକ୍ସଟ ଏପିସୋड 99 ଦ ପେନ୍ ଅଲ୍ଟିମେଟ୍ ଟୁ ଏ ସେଞ୍ଚୁରୀ ସେଇଠି ଭେଟିବା। ଥ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ୟୁ ଅଲ୍।